There has never been a society that didn't have at least a residual belief in witchcraft. It's not a recent thing. It doesn't suddenly bound into existence in the 17th century. What happens, though, and this is important, in the 15th, 16th, 17th centuries, people started trying to prosecute everyone who they thought was guilty of witchcraft. And by the time of the Bamberg trials, it was a serious matter for the secular courts with capital punishment to follow.
The theological and legal foundation for witch trials was found in a book published in the late 15th century, the Malleus Maleficarum, or Hammer of the Witches, defined witchcraft as a pact with the devil and laid down ways to combat this alleged evil. The prosecution of witches was not restricted to Germany, however. Similar trials took place throughout Europe. Both Protestant and Catholic communities took part. In a tiny village in Sweden, more than 70 people were beheaded in a single day. Hundreds were killed in Scotland, and the Spanish Inquisition accused thousands. A moral panic was gripping Europe. But what could drive whole societies to such inhuman acts? For hundreds of years in the Middle Ages, Europe benefited from long summers and mild winters. Crops were plentiful, and the seas free of ice. But this medieval warm period did not last forever. By the 16th century, Europe had become colder. Rivers froze, snows lingered long into spring, and crops failed again and again.
There was widespread famine. Months of rain ruined crops, and there were no charitable agencies, of course, to prevent people starving in their villages.
What people thought they knew about the weather was constantly violated, and that upset them terribly and made them feel that something was causing all this. People are very reluctant to believe that nature is as changeable as it actually is.
If your harvest fails for 1 year, but then another year, and then another year, these things appear to be against the course of nature. Because they appear to be unnatural, of course, it's natural for the collective mind to seek a supernatural reason for it. It's that kind of collective thinking which surely would have played a significant role in the collective fury of the witch hunts.
The Bamberg trials finally ended after the Swedish intervention in the 30 Years' War. King Gustavus Adolphus invaded Germany in defense of Protestantism. In February of 1632, his forces neared Bamberg. The Bishop von Dornheim fled. The remaining prisoners in the witch house were released. They were told never to speak of the torture inflicted upon them.
The trials in Bamberg are a frightening example of what can happen when society turns on itself, when it seeks out the saboteurs and the enemies within, when it embarks on a witch hunt.
In the 19th century, Britain was transformed. A steam-powered revolution was underway. Railways cut through the countryside. Chimneys pierced the sky. The roar of metal-toothed machinery filled the air, and black smoke veiled the heavens. The Industrial Revolution made Britain a global superpower. It reshaped the landscape of the country, and it altered the lives of its people forever. Although creating great wealth and beginning to improve living standards of even the poorest, this new age of industry was also disrupting established ways of life. Old jobs were disappearing and towns were swallowing up people in their thousands.
The cities were transformed by factories and mills. They became dark and dirty. People started doing what we would now think of as a really long workday, actually. They typically were roused by the factory siren at sort of 7 in the morning and didn't stagger home again till 6 at night.
When you get new communities, you really have to create myths and legends that allow people to deal with that environment and allow people to identify themselves with that environment.
Once you've got people living in the rookeries, they're going to start trying to make up stories about where they are, and they're going to start trying to incorporate this nightmare landscape of thick smoke and fog and blackened buildings and hungry children into their mythology as a way of coping with it.
There aren't the certainties of the old small communities where everybody knew everybody. So the Industrial Revolution was a great sort of upset to old communities, but it also created new communities. And it's the transition between the old and new communities where you get a lot of new legends and myths starting to emerge.
The first rumors began circulating in the autumn of 1837. In the villages south of London, a monstrous fiend was on the loose, described as a great white bull or bear. Something had attacked several people, and women were its favorite target. As the rumors spread closer to the heart of the city, the strange creature's form shifted. It became more human and all the more frightening. It was an unearthly visitant, clad in armor and long-clawed gloves, who struck at night before escaping with great leaps over the city rooftops. By early 1838, authorities could no longer ignore the phenomenon. On the 8th of January, Sir John Cowen, Lord Mayor of the City of London, publicised a letter he'd received from a resident of South London. The letter warned of the strange apparition and the terror growing among the people. The Lord Mayor, however, was dismissive. These attacks were either made up or the work of malicious pranksters.
The Times printed the mayor's announcement the next day. The monster made another leap, this time into the imaginations of people around the country. He soon had a name as well: Spring-Heeled Jack.
This is where you really see the media beginning to take the legend and feed back into the legend. Terrible event in somewhere, great outrage in, the usual things. But you also had a lot of chapbooks, which are sort of little, almost like little paperbacks, little sort of paper books, which were sold by peddlers all over the country.
He comes from the kind of literature that usually gets characterized as the penny dreadful, which is a literature deliberately produced for, and to some extent also by, the ordinary kids who are just about literate, who love a good story, who love to be scared.
The idea of something jumping at you is like a popcorn moment in a horror film, basically. And this is part of the thing that appealed to people. They like to be scared.
Spring-Heeled Jack was a blend of the old and new. He was a figure reminiscent of ancient superstition, yet was strikingly modern in his appearance. Whether the attacks were real or fabricated in many ways doesn't matter. The fact that the stories spread so quickly and were believed by so many reveals an anxiety at work in Victorian society. For with his metal claws and furnace mouth, Spring-Heeled Jack was the dark personification of this new industrial urban world, a new demon hidden among the anonymous masses of the city.
It must have seemed to people that they were living in hell At night, you could see the fires from the potteries for miles and miles and the smoke belching out. Why would you not think that this was part of a kind of modern demonology?
This notion of a character who can jump quickly, looks like the devil, sometimes he's skeletal, sometimes he's got fiery eyes, but he also begins to take on characters of the Gothic hero, in that he can be dressed as a gentleman and he has a long cloak. So you can see this figure being created about all of the fascinations and anxieties of the Victorian world.
I suspect Spring Hill Jack struck people as a kind of emanation of the Industrial Revolution itself, the darkness, the terrible smog and fog that overtook the country, the fact that even the trees turned black.
He's the perfect urban legend for the Victorian era. He's a criminal, he's supernatural. You never know when he's going to appear. He attacks the vulnerable. But of course, if you read about him in a chapbook or a newspaper or see him on stage, somehow you're safe.
Till the knights removed their helmets. They were the noblemen he had freed from his father's dungeon. They denounced the impostor in the royal box and proclaimed Roswal the true prince. "Arrest them!" the steward cried, but nobody moved. "Arrest them!" The more he shouted, the less princely he looked. Instead of the royal bride he hoped for, the steward received a traitor's death. His head was left to rot above the city gates. Reclaiming his royal title, Roswal married Lillian. The happy kingdom they inherited lived in peace and justice all the rest of their days.
With roots in earlier folklore, the story of Roswal was a popular one in 16th century England and Scotland. It was a tale of social order uprooted and then restored. An attractive proposition for many in what was a time of religious upheaval and national uncertainty.
For change is often frightening. Too much can tear society apart, but too little and society withers. In times of change, stories can be a comfort to cling to, or a tool to probe with. They can be a reminder of shared history, or a vision of a possible future. The best of them have lingered in our memory for centuries.
The tensions in society reflected by those tales have not disappeared completely, however. We remain a jumble of contradictions just about muddling by. But as was ever the case, is in the stories we cherish, in the legends we believe, and in the myths we retell, that those contradictions are debated and our values are tested.